Did Trump say he was going to work with the military to distribute vaccines?
Yeah, I think we're going to have a vaccine by the end of the year. We're doing very well with the vaccine. And I will tell you something, I just literally left a meeting. We're mobilizing our military and other forces, but we're mobilizing our military on the basis that we do have a vaccine. You know, it's a massive job to give this vaccine. Our military is now being mobilized. So at the end of the year, we're going to be able to give it to a lot of people very, very rapidly.
So this is part of Trump's plan, Operation Warp Speed, where he's going to work with the ex-head of GlaxoSmithKline, a pharmaceutical company, to try to have a vaccine by around January of 2020 and use military logistics and possibly the military itself to get it out to everybody in time. Now let's get this out of the way before I get lied about, falsely smeared, or censored. I'm not an anti-vaxxer, but personally I don't believe that rushing through and trying to speed through a vaccine trial to get a vaccine this quickly is a good idea. I just don't. And in order to back up that opinion, I'm going to use the health experts, bureaucrats, and accredited virologists to make that point. Let's start with Dr. Anthony Fauci, who the media seems to be obsessed with.
Now, the issue of safety, something that I want to make sure the American public understand. It's not only safety when you inject somebody and they get maybe an idiosyncratic reaction, they get a little allergic reaction, they get pain. There's safety associated. Does the vaccine make you worse? And there are diseases in which you vaccinate someone, they get infected with what you're trying to protect them with, and you actually enhance the infection. You can get a good feel for that in animal models. So that's going to be interspersed at the same time that we're testing. We're going to try and make sure we don't have enhancement. So the worst possible thing you could do is vaccinate somebody to prevent infection and actually make them worse.
I can't say what he just said or else they might censor or ban me, but he said it, so I just played that clip. Safety trials are important. Rushing through the approval of a coronavirus or COVID-19 vaccine seems like a terrible idea. I mean, I don't care if Joe Biden, Donald Trump, Barack Obama, George Bush, or Hillary Clinton did it. Not really a fan of the idea. In order to further showcase that without seeming conspiratorial or crazy, I'm going to use a clip from the Joe Rogan Experience where he talked to Michael Osterholm a few months ago, who's an internationally recognized expert in infectious disease epidemiology. He is a Regents Professor, McKnight Presidential Endowed Chair in Public Health, the Director of the Center for Infectious Diseases Research and Policy, and very many more. Listen to what he says here on the podcast.
The second thing we have to worry about is safety. There's a condition in humans called antibody-dependent enhancement, ADE. And it turns out that if you have no antibody or an immune response, you'll get the disease. If you have a lot, you're protected. But if you have this in-between level, and then you get the disease, it actually enhances the disease immune response. It's really destructive. And in fact, there was just a couple of years ago a major recall of dengue vaccine, a type of vaccine we use for mosquito infection in the Philippines, where kids who got the vaccine actually made just a little bit of antibody, and when they got the real disease, it made them a lot sicker. And so we found with the 2003 SARS vaccine that there was an ADE component to it when we made it in animals. And so we're going to have to really study this to be sure it's safe. And as you said earlier, we can surely make mistakes. We don't, we need to do everything we can not to.
So once again, I'm not an anti-vaxxer. I'm certainly not an anti-Donald Trump or anything like that. I'm just not so sure that rushing it through trials and trying to get it done as fast as possible is a good idea.
I'm also pleased to report today that a vaccine candidate has begun the phase 1 clinical trial. This is one of the fastest vaccine development launches in history. Not even close.
Now, once again, I only want to read trusted news sources that are mainstream and 100% verified by the people who tell me I'm not allowed to read anything else or think about anything else. Let's just stick to the mainstream media news sources. This came out on November 25th, 2019 in the Associated Press. More polio cases now caused by vaccine than by wild virus. Straight out of the article, it says 4 African countries have reported new cases of polio linked to the oral vaccine. As global health numbers show, there are now more children being paralyzed by viruses originating in vaccines than in the wild. In a report late last week, the World Health Organization and partners noted 9 new polio cases caused by the vaccine in Nigeria, Congo, Central African Republic, and Angola. Several countries elsewhere in Africa have similar outbreaks, and cases have been reported in Asia. Of the 2 countries where polio remains endemic, Afghanistan and Pakistan, Vaccine-linked cases have been identified in Pakistan. I can't believe Associated Press was even allowed to put that out, although it did come from the World Health Organization, which, let me remind people, AP, World Health Organization, trusted news sources of Facebook, Google, and everybody who tells me I'm not allowed to look elsewhere. But am I even allowed to read their own news sources? I had a video where I basically just read New York Times reports about tainted test kits, which came directly from the source itself and people at these agencies, but YouTube deleted that video. So I can't even read the news now. It's getting crazy, the censorship, but that was Associated Press that said that, not me. I found this the other year too, which is WLTX19 with the CBS symbol next to it. It said 24 cases of the mumps confirmed at the University of Florida. As of Tuesday afternoon, University of Florida spokesperson Steve Orlando confirmed that there are 24 cases of the mumps on campus. All 24 students were vaccinated. So the point I'm trying to get to is simple. I'm not an anti-vaxxer and I don't accept that label because that's not the way I feel. I understand the science behind vaccines. And I understand that science says you should really make sure that you safely test a vaccine and make sure it's really, really safe before you administer it to the public. And I'm tired about being lied about, censored, and smeared as a conspiracy theorist when in this video I use Dr. Fauci, an accredited virologist and epidemiologist, CBS, Associated Press, and the experts that they tell me to listen to at the World Health Organization to craft my idea of why I think whether it's Trump or a Democrat or any Republican, I'm not impressed by Operation Warp Speed or the Space Force style marketing to tell me that rushing through a vaccine and getting it to the public as quickly as possible is a good idea, because I don't think it's a good idea. And if all these clips weren't enough for you to respect, or I guess Facebook and Google to even allow me to have this perspective in the first place, if it wasn't enough, here's a clip of Bill Gates on television explaining that they do need to test because if there's side effects, it's going to affect a lot of people if they decide to administer this to the whole country or the whole world, which is what they all seem to be trying to do.
Yeah, so there's an approach called RNA vaccine that people like Moderna, CureVac, and others are using that in 2015, we'd identified that as very promising for pandemics and for other applications as well. And so if everything goes perfectly with the RNA approach, we could actually beat the 18 months. We don't want to create unrealistic expectations. The efficacy of vaccines in older people is always a huge challenge. You know, it turns out the flu vaccine isn't that effective in elderly people. Most of the benefit comes from younger people not spreading it because they're vaccinated, and that benefits on a community basis the elderly. Here, we clearly need a vaccine that works in the upper age range because they're most at risk of that. And doing that so that you amp it up so it works in older people and yet you don't have side effects. You know, if we have 1 in 10,000 side effects, that's, way more, 700,000, people who will suffer from that. So really understanding the safety at gigantic scale across all age ranges, pregnant, male, female, undernourished, existing comorbidities, it's very, very hard. And that actual decision of, okay, let's go and give this vaccine to the entire world, governments will have to be involved because there will be some risk and indemnification needed before that can be decided on.
So that's really the story of the day. Let me know what you think. I'd love to hear your perspective in the comments section. This is mine. It's all love. I think people should have the ability to optional safe medicine, but in no way, shape, or form do I personally think it's a good idea to rush through safety trials and try to get a new medication to the public as fast as possible. And when it comes to HIV, they weren't able to just rush through and get a cure within a year or half a year. I mean, it's been decades and they're still working on medicines for it. When it comes to SARS and MERS, it didn't happen instantaneously. With the flu, the vaccine's been around since 1942, over 75 years, and we're still having massive flu seasons. So I don't see the correlation between having that flu vaccine and the eradication of the disease. So I'm not sure why this is even a fringe or controversial stance. What I have, please don't rush Donald Trump or anybody else involved. Take your time, especially with a medication or vaccine that millions of people are going to want. God bless you. Have a beautiful week, and I'll be back with more videos.